call the meeting to order and stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Honorable Mayor Ron Shaver.
Here.
Councilmember David Fowler. Here. Doug Shasso.
Here.
Allison Howe.
Here.
Clint Anderson.
Here.
Lisa Northrup.
Here.
Kevin Lindell.
Present. Okay, first item on the agenda this evening is a recognition of Mr. Gary Fritzler as Employee of the Quarter. Mr. Wells, Mr. Nation, and Mr. Behrens.
Well, I'll invite all three of them to come down to the podium right now, but want to thank all of the work that has been done in the gas department by Mr. Fritzler. He has demonstrated all kinds of great things for his department. In fact, I should probably come up there. Gary embodies what we want to see happen in the city of Fort Morgan as far as an employee goes. You know, there are a lot of stories that you hear from different people about how they've been impacted by what our employees do, but I wanted to share a story specifically about Gary and some of the things that he has been trained to do, and which is really a part of the culture that we have in Fort Morgan and is supported by Tony and Brent in what we do. You know, often you get called out to do things that aren't always fun. I think you're the shutoff guy, aren't you? Yeah. So you might want to run after this. Oh. That's not true. Everybody pays their bills in here. So, you know, one of the things that he learned early on in his career was that we listen to people. And we take the time and we talk to them and we understand what their problems and what their issues are. And there are many experiences that he shared with me when we went to lunch about how he went above and beyond with customer service and making sure that the customer's taken care of, that they're listened to, that their needs are met. And his job isn't an easy job when you've got to go out and turn off people's utilities for non-payment. But one in particular that stood out to me was, he says, you know, you get to know the people on your route, you get to know the people that you know, are normally on the list and those who aren't normally on the list. And there was an elderly woman on the list that he said, this isn't right. So he knocked on the door, and you know, she was very surprised that the bill hadn't been paid, and he went out of his way to make sure that she was taken care of. And I think that is what makes our community and our city so great, is to have people like Gary who are willing to put in the extra time and effort to make sure that the customer is taken care of. So it is my pleasure tonight to introduce Gary, and I'll let Brent and Tony say their two pieces here. Tony's first. But I want to thank Gary on behalf of myself, his supervisors, all the employees and the community for his hard work and being recognized as our Employee of the Quarter. So if you'd join me in recognizing him.
I've had the privilege to work with Gary for more than 15 years now, and it has been a real honor to work with Gary. I mean, he's an honest, hard-working gentleman, and he's a large asset to my department and the city as a whole. And like Jeff said, when it comes to the customer service side, he's got it down packed, and I'm willing to bet on Gary against anybody else when it comes to the customer service. So I really appreciate Gary and all the time that he spends with us, and I hope we get a few more years out of him.
I can just echo what Jeff and Tony have had to say. I think the biggest pleasure I have with Gary is he must walk by my office about 20 times a day. And so I see him a lot. He always says hi. He's probably one of the most cheerful people that we have working in the city, and given the job that he has to do, I mean, it speaks a lot to his character and being able to keep that smile on his face when he's having to do unfortunately the job that he has to do. And so I can't say enough about what he does for us, and I echo Tony with the fact that I hope he's with us for a while longer. So, but thanks for everything you do, Gary.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody, and it's always nice to be recognized. And I appreciate all the kind words. And I also want to recognize the guys that I work with, great group of people, great coworkers, and we try to do the best job we can. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Gary. Well, I've had the pleasure of working with you as well, and I will reiterate what they've said. I was amazed you didn't call in sick on shut-off days, so, I mean, that says a lot, and it has been, and is a pleasure working with you. You are an asset to the city, and thanks for what you do. Okay, next item on the agenda is a reading of a proclamation declaring April to be General Aviation Appreciation Month. Whereas the city of Fort Morgan and the state of Colorado has a significant interest in the continued vitality of general aviation, aircraft manufacturing, aviation educational institutions, aviation organizations, and community airports, and whereas general aviation and the Fort Morgan Municipal Airport have an immense economic impact on the city of Fort Morgan and Morgan County, and whereas Colorado is home to 61 public use airports which serve 17,583 pilots and 5,468 general aviation aircraft. And whereas Colorado is home to 68 fixed base operators, 75 repair stations, 185 helicopters, 9 FAA approved pilot schools, 3,098 flight students, and 3,668 flight instructors. And whereas general aviation in Colorado contributes over $2.4 billion to the state's economy, and whereas general aviation not only supports Colorado's economy, it improves overall quality of life by supporting emergency medical, health, and care services, law enforcement, firefighting, and disaster relief, and by transporting business travelers to their destination quickly and safely. And whereas the nation's aviation infrastructure represents an important public benefit, and congressional oversight should be in place for this system to ensure that it remains a public system that serves communities of all sizes. Now, therefore, I, Ron Shaver, Mayor of the City of Fort Morgan, do hereby proclaim general aviation a vital strategic resource to the City of Fort Morgan and declare April as General Aviation Appreciation Month in the City of Fort Morgan. In witness whereof I here do set my hand and cause the seal of Fort Morgan to be affixed this the 16th day of April 2019. We'll just give this to...
Yeah, you can just give it back.
We'll get it out to Kyle. Next is a presentation and possible action on the acceptance of a donation from Mr. Eugene Doty towards the construction of a new senior citizen center and authorization for the mayor to sign the necessary documents. Mr. Wells.
Thank you. Before we get started with some of the presentation tonight, I want to recognize some special guests that we have with us in the audience tonight. First of all, Gene Doty's here with his nephew Rick and his sister Georgia, and they join us tonight as part of this presentation, and we just want to recognize them and welcome them here tonight. The way that we'll kind of follow through on this is we'll have a presentation by George Cromwell, who's been selected by Mr. Doty to design the facility, and we also have with us Bob and Ryan Elric, who are going to build this great facility, and want to thank them for their hard work and foresight to bring this to us today. Shortly after I came back from leave in about October, November, Gene came into me and said, I've got an idea and I want to do something. And so I'll turn it over to George to kind of show you where this idea has gone and where we're at tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, and the public, we're excited about this new project that Gene's come up with. We looked at the old senior center and found out that it was just not sufficient to add on to or do any other work with. So the idea kind of came about to maybe build a new building. And so with Gene's help and some of the city's help, I think that can come to fruition. So let's go to the next picture. This is kind of the floor plan of the building. Actually, it's facing just right. So top is north, the right is east, and the east side where the Port Cashier and the drive-through there faces Linda Street. And then we have a big common area in there. The occupancy is set at 299. To the west, we have a covered patio with a little barbecue area out there. And then on the south end, or the bottom, is a covered delivery area for the kitchen area that's right there and the office for the Meals on Wheels. And so there's the common area. It's a pretty big area. We have a billiards room that's going to be named after Gene's father, George Doty. Go to the next. Then we have a couple card rooms where the ladies can get together and play their cards. We have an exercise room, a storage room for tables and chairs. Of course, we have the covered patio to the west there where people can go out and enjoy the weather, have barbecues. The kitchen area, it's handicap accessible, and there's sinks and refrigerators and stoves, whatever we're going to need in there. But it's going to be a kitchen where we're not going to have a hood. So it won't be actually, it'll be more of a warming kitchen than a cooking kitchen. And then we have the two restrooms, the mechanical room and the coat room in the center. And then there's a fireplace there on the right side that faces the common area. And then we have our elevations. Of course, the east elevation on top is where the main entrance is. And then that would have the signage on it for the Gene Doty Senior Center. The south one is where the kitchen and the other door faces to the other entry. And then the north, the little jut out area is the billiards room. And then you have the entry on the left. And on the west, there's the covered patio. And then the site plan shows our parking, trees, how you can access that front area with the Port Cashier. There's actually 3 lanes there, 2 that would be covered and 1 that would be open. And that would be open in case we have like a bus come in to take the seniors someplace that they want to go. We have 5 handicap parking places on the south side as well. And we have, in the island out in the middle there's 26 parking places for now, and then there's future area down below. So that's kind of a concept picture of what the building would look. You're looking at it basically from the northeast. And then that is looking at the east, from the east of the building. And there's the west side of the building, and then the north side of the building. and that's also from the south side of the building there, too. So it's a real attractive building. It's got a lot of room in it, 6,300 square feet and some change. And do we have any questions from any of the council members?
One thing that just sprang to mind, and I don't have any idea what size and everything like that, but in noticing that it appears, but to the northwest is kind of where all the lawn was and the trees and that sort of stuff. Just something that came to mind is possibly putting a walking path in there.
Yes, yes, that has been mentioned.
Okay.
And also another thing that Steve Glameyer, the Public Works Director, has mentioned is we might have to have a depressed area out there a little bit for some water runoff, but it would be sloped gently, so it's not like it's going to come in like a swimming pool. Any other questions, even from the public?
How come there's not going to be a hood in there? Do they have one at the current senior center, or is that a warming kitchen also?
It's warming only right now. And
Just-
it's just a real hassle. If you have a cooking kitchen, you have to have a grease trap, you have to have a hood with all the fire suppression on it. It's just a real hassle and expensive.
I've been asked that question, if it was going to be a cooking kitchen or that, so
Okay?
if they're watching, they heard. Thanks, George.
It looks very nice. Looks very nice.
Thank
I
you.
think will be an incredible addition to our community, and something that's, long overdue to give, a state-of-the-art facility for, some of our seniors. And, it'll be a pleasure having it named after Gene, and especially, I love the naming over the billiards room, since that, I liked hearing the story when you guys told us about, how his father, his passion was pool. And so
Yes.
it's nice to,
Well, and a lot of the people that have moved here recently or some don't know how influential the Doty family has been for, 70-some years, more than likely. 100 years.
he's like, careful.
And I knew your dad, George, Gene, and he was a great guy. And I've known Rick's father, Dale, and I knew Don and Burke. It's a great family, and Gene's also a World War II vet, and I think we ought to just give Gene a round of applause. Thank you, Gene, for all you've done and all you're going to do for us. We really appreciate it. It's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I don't know if Rick or Bob want to say anything, or Bob, would you like to tell us whether or not you think you can build it? That's
First of all, thank you, Gene and Rick, Georgia. I've known them a long time. I don't speak well in front of people, so bear with me. Thank them for everything they've done for this community, and thank George for putting this plan together. We started months ago, got a lot of input from the ladies at the senior center to come up with some of these ideas, the covered porch in the back, the centrally placed bathrooms where it's close to the card rooms, things like that. We've given this a lot of thought, and hopefully we've covered all our bases, and we can fine tune everything as we're moving forward with this project. And yes, we can build this project as long as I have my son helping me, that's for sure. So he's the youth behind us. But thank you all for everything you've done.
Thanks, Bob. One of the things I'd make a couple announcements, and I think Gene would like to take a few minutes to speak, but I've worked for the city for 12 years, and I've read a lot of things about the city and different projects that we've done. But I have to say, from what I can tell, this is the largest single donation made by an individual to the city of Fort Morgan for anything. And what we have tonight is a contract accepting that donation in the amount of approximately $780,000. And I think that he deserves another round of applause for his donation for this. And in fact, I give him a standing applause. So Gene, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you all here. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you, gentlemen. I guess I better start there with this, but started when I started this. And I've been in business here for a number of years, over 60 years. And my project was I started here in 1955, and my object was every year I tried to build something or remodel something, you know, and I've been pretty successful at that. But where this really came about was when my father was up here at the nursing home at Hillcrest. The only gentleman he got would come down to the senior citizen. He'd have lunch and shoot pool with those gentlemen he had, and that's his only face. And so, and before he passed away, he told me one day, he said, "Why don't you do something that's good for the city and good for the senior citizens?" Because he said, "Hell, all you do is build somebody else or build something else." And he said, "Do something for us." So I didn't think much of it until after he passed away. And then the ladies here, as Bob said here, they kind of approached me and they needed a place and this and that, and one thing went to another. And so I thought about that. And so I had an investment. I made an investment 60 years ago. And I invested that money, never did touch it. And today it's worth about 800 is what that is today. So it's been real successful. Instead of giving it away to the government, I know there's going to be some changes before long. It's going to be, everything else going to be free, so I give it to the government. So anyway, so I just wanted going to donate, and Rick took care of this here, and so I'm going to donate that to him. There'd be a tax break for me to help. That's what it is. And it'd be for the benefit of the people, and it'd be an asset to the town. And it's what it would be, because there's something here that eventually we're all going to need. So anyway, but that's how that kind of come about. And this here was, and then I met with Bob, yeah, and so I approached Jeff on this here. And I told him what I had in mind, and he said, "Well, that's a good idea." But he said, "What are you going to do if you start remodeling that or fixing it up for the people? Because where would the senior citizens go for dinner, this and that? And the ladies would pay cards and other things." So he suggested that give him some land, for the city would donate some land, which is, I think is wonderful. And that was wonderful what they offered to, and give instructions on it. So we went for one thing and another. Then I met with Bob here. We looked this thing over, the old place we was going to remodel. And that there was a little bit low. There's water runs in it. It's got mold in it and this and that. And so we decided not to. So, and they presented this site here, and Bob was all for it 100%. He said, "We want to build something nice." And that's what we got here now. Because it started small, but it's large. And this here, I patterned this here off of some what I've seen, what we did here, and they incorporated some good ideas in it, because this is something nice. It'll be here. It's going to be a first-class unit. It'll be something we would enjoy in years to come. So, and it'll be a tax advantage to me, and also it helped the people of Fort Morgan, which is needed, you know, because we're losing a lot of people. Majority of the people we go here, they always go west, so why? I know of 5 people here now. They're very prominent people that's left here and that's going west, one thing and another. So anyway, this here is just an option what I did in Brush. In Brush, I donated the Doughty Pond down there that was 40 acres years ago. That there, I gave them the land. Here I give the city the building, and the city's giving us the land, so it's just the option. But it's what's going to do, and that's been a great asset down there, because the senior citizens that go down there, they fish, they do this and that, and they're building a great recreation place down there. It's what they're doing, so that's been an asset. So that's what it is. This is my last project I'm building, and hope that begin to see it and everything. So I've got a little leg problem now, so that's what's my trouble. So on it, but if you got any questions on it, let us know here, and if I can't answer, Bob can, or somebody can. So, but I've got the assets there. That's with Merrill Lynch, and I'm just conveying all of that to the city. The city's going to take it from there. I'll have nothing to do with it there, and Bob and the city will take care of it from there. So if they don't get it built, it's not my fault. So you get it. And if you got any complaints, get a hold of them. So anyway, it's been a privilege. I've seen a lot of changes here. It's been for the good and for the best, but it's one of those things, yeah. So anyway, so I don't know anything else. I've got some ideas I'm conveyed to these boys about building it here. We're going to do afterwards, so on that. So if you got any questions in it, that's what I say, let us know. So, but any suggestions what we can do, now's the time we can do it, and George can change it, yeah. But that is nice what he's doing there, yeah. So I want to thank you for the opportunity and everything. So I just hope you all enjoy it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, you just sat down.
That's 2 of us.
Okay.
Kind of a good story going along with this was George was talking about when he was working with Gene, and they went to the senior center and talked to people, and how the senior center kept growing. Initially, it was a 2 pool table billiard room. No, that wouldn't be enough. We're going to need 4, and so then it went to 4. So nothing but the best for the seniors in Fort Morgan, according to Gene.
And as the project grew, so did the donation.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
I'd just like to say, Gene, I want to thank you for your generous donation and all that you do for Morgan County, not just Fort Morgan. And everything you do is greatly appreciated.
I'd like to turn it over to Rick for just a minute.
Wanted to add, for those of you that don't know Gene and Gene's story, he's a Colorado native, lived here all of his life. My grandfather came here when he was 16, 1919 from Missouri, a long time ago. But Gene graduated from high school in 1943. And for boys that graduated in 1943, you knew what the next step was. He was drafted into the U.S. Army, sent to the East Coast waiting for a transport ship to Europe. When he was pulled off, put on a train, and sent to the 38th Infantry in the Philippines to liberate the Bataan Death March survivors and that sort of thing, and spent a couple years there. After the war, rather than come home, he had malaria, and he spent a year at a hospital in Detroit, Michigan. So other than those few years in World War II, he's been right here at Fort Morgan. So thank you.
And thanks, Rick, for all your help. Oh.
Gene wants me to let you know that he did go on the Northern Colorado Honor Flight a couple years ago. I was his guardian along with my father Dale, who was in the Navy Seabees. And Gene has 5 brothers. All 6 of them served in the military, 2 in the Army, 2 in the Air Force, 1 in the Navy, and 1 in the Marine Corps. So,
Well,
thank you.
Very good.
Congratulations.
So I guess that leaves just Georgia if she wants to say anything.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. What we'll look for is just a resolution from council to accept and authorize, accept the contract as presented tonight. Obviously, the city will be making a contribution by way of land, utilities, and additional cash to finish out the project, but this is a really important thing for our community, and I really appreciate everybody who's come together in this process to make it a reality, and want to thank council for your support and guidance as we've gone through this process. So thank you to everyone, and I guess we'll wait for the official action to make it official by city council.
With that, I would entertain a resolution accepting this donation.
Your Honor, I would gladly and happily make a resolution on acceptance of a donation from Eugene Doty toward the construction of a new senior center and authorization for the mayor to sign the necessary documents.
Second.
A resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you. I'm at the age I can enjoy that. Okay, next item on the agenda is introduction of the Youth Advisory Commission members and a presentation and possible action on approval of the commission members. Mr. Hamer.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Council, thanks for having us. I'm going to kind of give a little background information of how we got to this point while the kids are coming up, and then I'll introduce them, and we'll have a couple speakers from the group. But as many of you are aware, when I took over this position, there was a request by council to pursue a youth commission. With Greg Edson's help at the school, we started having meetings, came up with an application process. We had our kickoff meeting in February. We've had 7 great applicants that are all here tonight. Great group of kids. A couple of them are missing, but I'll introduce them as well. And then you guys can hopefully appoint them officially to the board. In the process, we've been working on their bylaws. We started with the sample bylaws from the Golf Course Advisory Board. They, as a group, went through, kind of updated those, tweaked them to their own functions, I guess. And Lincoln's going to go over their kind of core functions that they've come up with for their group. And then Tessa will go over some of their ideas. But I'm just going to go through a list real quick. I'll try to list the 2 guys that are not here tonight first. Caden Edson's at a track meet, I believe. He's one of our members. Caden Edson plays football, basketball. He's part of Student Senate. One of his comments that stood out to me on his application was he's concerned with park conditions, and Caden would like to organize a community service group to help clean up the parks, to help enhance the town's reputation, and allow people to see how great Fort Morgan truly is. The other one we're missing tonight is Jonathan Diaz. Jonathan's a sophomore, member of the League of United Latin American Citizens. He's a musician. He works with the Fort Morgan Cultures for United Progress. Jonathan's concerned with the struggles that many students go through at school. He would like to see improved unity among the different cultures in our community. Let's see, Tessa Frasco. Tessa's a sophomore. She's active in volleyball, basketball, student wellness committee, and the student senate. She's involved in 4-H and works at the nursery of her church. She would like to work on communication to and from the youth. She'd like to see more entertainment, shopping, and restaurants in town. So I think some common themes as to what we've been talking about as a group. Emily Wells, sophomore. Emily's involved in soccer, basketball, cross country, student senate. She gets involved in musicals. science fair, and the youth group at her church. Emily believes there's a strong need for a place where youth can hang out, get together, a safe place to have a good time and converse, recreate, or just hang. She also would like to work on integration of cultures so that people feel welcome. Lincoln Wickham's a junior. He's in Student Senate, FFA, and he helped with the community Thanksgiving dinner this past year. Lincoln is concerned because some activities that our youth are participating in are harmful to themselves and others. He feels there should be more positive activities to help youth come together and stay out of trouble. Kadro Abdi. Kadra is a freshman. Kadra is a member of the International Club at Fort Morgan High School. Kadra believes there's a need for more places for kids to hang out, positive activities to be involved in, and she's concerned about kids breaking curfew and getting involved with drugs. Also, we have Cole Givens. He's our 7th member. Cole's a cross-country, track, and student senate junior. Cole believes youth can help with the cleanliness of Fort Morgan, improve academic experiences, and the way the community interacts as a whole. Cole believes the Armory is old and small, and a new recreation center would be a great place for community interaction, would promote health and wellness for everybody. So, did I forget anybody? And then you've got Greg, who's just an all-around great guy. Greg's been a huge help, and Clint's been a help trying to get these kids organized. They have a lot of good ideas. It was very interesting. I don't know if you guys got to look through their applications. As a parent of teenagers, there was some stuff in there that, I don't know, I think, we need to talk about. And I think a lot of their concerns are those of ours too. So here's the group. I'll turn it over to Lincoln, and he can tell you a little bit about the functions of their committee. Got it?
Yes, sir. Some of our functions, like Ty said, were to represent the voice of the Fort Morgan youth, to obtain input from the youth committee, and to make recommendations to the city council, to learn the various roles and participate in their local government, its legislative procedures, and administrative duties, to participate in and promote community outreach programs, to investigate potential projects and opportunities to benefit the community, as well as to communicate and report news to the city and the city council to the youth within the community. And here's Tessa.
Okay, so as a group, we brainstormed a list of ideas that we would like to move forward with, or at least talk about and consider. Some of those are to look into more recreational opportunities and facilities to have in town, community events, finding a way to build a bridge between schools and the community, and park improvements such as new trails, outside activities, and cleanup of the nature areas, which those are just some of the ideas. And as a group, we're welcome to suggestions from you guys, from the council, for projects or initiatives to take on as a group. So, thank you.
Very good. So I think at this point, this is your 7 that we're starting with in the Fort Morgan Youth Commission. I believe we need approval of council to appoint them and officially create a board. And then from there on, our next meeting, we'll assign a chairperson, a vice chair, and a secretary, and we'll move forward with some of our ideas. That's all we have.
Ty, quick question. How often will we get to see this group back in front of us?
Every single meeting, I think. I don't know.
They're always welcome.
These kids these days are so busy. I mean, they're all playing sports. They're all in extracurricular activities. So I already have several ideas that I'm hoping they can help us with. One of them we talked about the other day. I'd like to get them involved in the bike park and some of the construction and grand opening festivities there, parties in the park, that kind of thing. Any initiatives that they come up with, we'll work with them to create proposals, kind of action plans, and look at obstacles they may be facing, and they can bring them to you to talk about. They do have a little bit of a budget, so if they were to do any pilot programs, they have some funds where they'd be able to create pilot programs. So we'll see what happens. We're excited. Questions? Questions for the kids?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Clint, Ty, and Greg, for all your back-end work on this, because I know starting anything takes a lot of momentum and hard work. But yeah, I have goosebumps. I'm so excited. This is one of those initiatives that we've been dreaming of for a long time. So thank you so much, students, for being willing to help support the city, and we will support your ideas, absolutely. But I have one hard question that I want everyone to answer. So in 10 years, looking back on your involvement being this inaugural group, what are you going to be most proud of? And you got to step up to the mic so people at home can hear you.
Making the community a better place.
Right on. You can steal the idea.
I would just say allowing the youth to have a bigger voice in the community and kind of express their ideas.
Yeah, I would say to have a place for the youth and community to get together, and it's like a safe environment.
To just help everyone in the community get involved and just come together.
Great.
I would say to make Fort Morgan a better place to live and for people to like be more involved in this community.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Clint, you should get in that.
They lined up perfectly.
It's about the kids.
So with that, I would entertain a resolution accepting the Youth Advisory Commission applicants.
Your Honor, I offer a resolution to appoint the applicants for the Youth Advisory Commission and to adopt their bylaws.
Second.
I have a resolution by Allison Howe and a second by Clint Anderson. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you all for your willingness to participate, and we look forward to hearing back from you.
Somebody leaned on the lights.
Next is a presentation and discussion on Morgan Strong Organization proposal for a countywide recreation district. Mr. Caruth, I guess you're the speaker.
Hey, Ty.
Good night, yes.
Ty, do you want to fix the lights so we can see these, beautiful people?
Dim the lights for.
Hey,
They're
Bella.
over there, yeah.
If you open the folder icon,
Perfect. Good job.
oh, can I?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, council members, city officials, thank you very much for having us here tonight and for hearing our proposal and our plans. I'm here representing an organization called Morgan Strong, which is a 501c3 organization that's been founded in its last year in Morgan County to promote recreational opportunity, activities, and programming countywide. We can get the PowerPoint going here.
So the public won't be able to see it, Rob, but all the council have the slides in their packet.
Okay, perfect. But I don't.
That's true.
We'll see how well you have it memorized.
All right, exactly. So while we're waiting, we do have a duly appointed board from countywide across the county representing interests from Wiggins to Brush to Fort Morgan, Log Lane, Snyder, Orchard, Weldona. We have board members here tonight. If you're on the board of Morgan Strong, if you'd stand up just a second so the council knows who we're dealing with. Anybody here? I saw him.
All of Wafa's family is here standing in for her, so.
Okay, perfect.
And then if you're on Team Morgan Strong, do you want to give a wave to the board member or council members so they know who you are?
It's a very interesting segue while we're waiting for this, the youth commission that you just appointed. I think the ideas that we have will mesh very closely to what they were saying they identified as needs for Fort Morgan and for the county. Good job. So are you ready? Okay, all right. So anyway, we're here representing Morgan Strong. Our goals tonight are so you understand where we're at and what we're trying to do. We can discuss the benefits of a Morgan County-wide recreational program and facilities, and discuss steps where we can maybe move together in cooperation with each other in establishing some additional recreational opportunities and programs as we go forward.
Our goal, our Everyone Plays, is connecting Morgan County residents of all ages to fund affordable and expansive recreation. And so we want to emphasize that we're not just focusing on the youth of Morgan County, though that is an emphasis, but we're looking to provide recreational opportunities for every age group, including the senior citizens that Mr. Doty so generously donated to tonight. We want places where people can swim, where people can congregate, where people can exercise, where people can play pickleball, do whatever they need to do. We want to provide those type of facilities and programming for Morgan County. We talked a little bit about our organizational structure. We have an executive board. We have a Morgan Strong Cities partnership. We have Morgan Strong partners with community members. And when we have Team Morgan Strong, which are the citizens that are committed to this concept, are willing to go and talk to people who are willing to represent the organization throughout the county and promote the recreational ideas that we have. Just a little bit of the background. We started holding meetings in 2017, officially became a 501c3 the same year, put together our organizational board leadership from across Fort Morgan, did some fundraising so we could do the investigation, the surveys, the citizen interaction, the feedback without asking for public monies to support that effort. So we've done private fundraising to support the efforts that we're doing. We're hiring experts to assist us in these areas so we know, kind of have a more expert opinion on where we're going than we might be able to have. We're currently doing a needs assessment countywide and a countywide survey to every household in the county, questioning them and asking their input on recreational needs, wants, desires, what they see as strengths, what they see as weaknesses, and where they'd like to see the county go as we go forward. Some of the funders that I've just mentioned, the donations that we've got, Dom's Talton Foundations, Fort Morgan Cultures United for Progress, the Colorado Health Foundation, along with numerous private donors, have donated to us. So we have a, I wouldn't say fairly sizable, but adequate war chest to fund what we're doing and to pay for the expert opinions that we need. The help that we're getting now, we have contracts with Greenplay to help do our needs assessment and do our operating assessments and that type of thing. George K. Baum for funding of the project. Civic Canopy, legal help from Collins, Cochran, and Cole, as we'll have to develop service plans that will have to be approved by the county and that type of thing before we go forward. So these are the people that most of our money is going to help us initiate this project. The needs assessments that we've done, we've met with the City of Fort Morgan and the City of Brush recreation programs, directors and their employees, and have talked to them about recreational programming in their particular municipalities, what they see as strengths and weaknesses of their programs, where they think we could grow, where we think we could get some bang for the buck through some synergy if we did a countywide type of initiative as opposed to a municipal initiative. And we've talked to them. We've held public meetings, Brush, Fort Morgan, Log Lane, Hill Rose, Waldona, and Wiggins, where citizens were invited to come and talk to us and again give us their input on what strengths and weaknesses and desires were for recreational programming in the county. We've held stakeholder interviews, which were interviews with individuals who have significant influence, impact, or knowledge of youth and recreational activities. High school athletic directors, principals, people in the recreation departments, those type of people, coaches, we've talked to assess what they think we need and where we can go with this. Currently doing the demographic study and the registered voter survey as well. At the public meetings, we're asking people in particular to identify strengths and weaknesses of what we currently offer. And that's in each municipality, so we're talking to the people in Wiggins and Fort Morgan and Brush to that. The people in Waldona and Orchard, Hill Rose, those type of people who tend to come into the municipalities for their recreational needs. We've talked to them. We've asked them to assess the current facilities that they're available for their use, including fields, trails, gyms, all of those type of things. Asked them what opportunities they thought we needed for future programming and facilities. Consider what key values we want in creating a recreational district for Morgan County, try to identify who is underserved in recreational programming, and how we can finance what we see as our vision for that solution. So that's just pictures. Try to ignore that. This kind of dovetails into a lot of things the city has dealt with in the past and is dealing with currently. If you remember the history of recreational districts, recreational facilities, rec center initiatives in Fort Morgan, started back in 2003. I think there was an initiative in 2005 to fund a rec center, which failed. There's been some ad hoc committees, some plans done. You guys have formally identified the field house as a priority for the citizens of Fort Morgan. We've had a Trails Master Plan adopted and developed. All of those type of things tell us and tell you, I think, that people value recreation. We need to provide for them. It's a public need to provide for the people that, you know, I mean, we have the golf courses, we have the trails, but we need to provide a more extensive recreational opportunity for most of the citizens, I think. Yeah, you can just go through that. So what we're proposing, what we're looking at is forming a countywide recreation district. So it would be a special district. It would be a quasi-governmental entity of sorts. It has to be approved by a ballot initiative. Be like a library district or a fire district or a water district or something of that nature. So what we're looking to do is create that on a countywide basis so we can provide all of the cities of the counties with the same recreational opportunity, where the funding for those opportunities would come from every citizen in the county, just not the residents of municipalities that are funding those type of programs. So right now you have people who live outside of the Fort Morgan city limits or the Brush city limits or Wiggins or whatever have, who come into the municipalities for their recreational opportunities and recreational needs that aren't paying taxes in their municipalities, you know, supporting those type of activities. This way they would. That's a map of current recreational districts in the state. Kind of hard to see, but the purple ones are current recreational districts throughout the state of Colorado. So the idea is not a new idea. It's been tested across the state. It's very successful. Some of the ones that we visited the one in Eaton, which you see on the slide right here, which was just built in 2014 and just opened, and it's a beautiful facility. We visited the one in Milliken, Johnstown area as well. They have recreational districts in Thompson, Canyon City area, Montrose. You've seen the one in Fort Lupton. You know, a variety of recreational facilities around the state. I guess the one thing that I heard consistently at all of our municipal meetings, the meetings that we held with the citizens around the county, is the people who had been to those type of districts, those type of facilities would say, why can't we have that? You know, why do I have to go there for that? Why can't we have that in Morgan County? And I think that's the kind of the imperative question is, why do our citizens have to go outside of the county for that type of service? We should be able to provide that here. You know, for you guys, local governments are facing growing pressure, I think, with respect for quality of life, for programming and, you know, all of that type of stuff without significant increased revenue streams to support those type of things. This would provide an alternative to that. We could, you know, a district with its own revenue funding relieve the municipalities of some of the funding of that recreational programming, consolidate that, get some funding synergy, get some programming synergy, get some facility synergy, so we're not duplicating efforts in the three major municipalities in the county, and we can perhaps receive, you know, achieve some spending savings and increase the quality of what we're doing. The benefits of creating a recreational district is to provide some diverse funding sources for better facilities, so not dependent on the municipalities to build those facilities. Those facilities can come from a different revenue stream. Support more recreational FTEs for improved programming, have a more expansive staff, have a more specialized staff, provide more opportunities for youth and employment across the county to support those programs, and then lead countywide projects that aren't municipal focused, like a countywide trails program and those type of things that aren't necessarily municipality based. You've heard this a million times. I mean, most corporate executives say that quality of life is very important when they're choosing to move a business, relocate a business, or start a business. If we want to attract people to Morgan County, we want to attract people to Fort Morgan, you know, we have to have the quality of life items that they want, that they make Fort Morgan an attractive place to live, make Morgan County an attractive place to live. I think most assessments say that Morgan County is on a growth scale. You know, people are moving in, and as those people move in, they're going to want and expect improved facilities and improved opportunity. Delay, of course, we've learned this since 2005. You know, every year you delay building something, it costs you that much more. So, you know, 20 million today was $48 million in 15 years, and you know, with inflation and whatnot, the delay it's easy to kick the can down the road, but it just eventually costs more money. It's like building schools. You know, you keep moving it down, and it just costs you more and more money. So moving forward, what we would like the City Council of Fort Morgan to consider is to discuss dedicating funds proposed for the field house that you're approved to build, to consolidate that with the Morgan Strong Recreational District, where we can build a facility larger than the field house, more inclusive, not have two structures, not try to patch two structures together, where we can, again, have some type of synergy on that structure, using the funds that you've already dedicated towards that project with the funds that we hope to raise with this initiative. We'd also ask you to allow city staff to work with Morgan Strong and our contracted experts on conducting feasibility studies, providing input, providing data, all of those type of things that we're going to need to put together for a service plan to present to the county. And then also, we'd like you to consider making a formal resolution of support of our efforts in our work towards creating a countywide recreation district, and your commitment to help fund that, help support that financially. So our next board meeting's in 2 days. If you'd like to come, you're welcome to. We try to move them around. This one happens to be in Brush, so at 6:30 on Thursday, if you're more interested in more information or would like to come provide some more in detailed discussion, you're welcome to come. So, any questions?
One that I'd have where you talk about the money that we had set forward for a field house and everything, and of course, we've made that a priority, and one of those reasons for that prioritizing is because of the condition of the armory and everything, and we really don't want it coming down around our shoulders. How much of a delay would you expect which this is going to cause if indeed council did move that way?
Well, our intent is to have this on the ballot in November and have that approved at that election. If we were successful, then I think that funding would be coming fairly rapidly, either through a mill levy, sales tax. We haven't definitively decided on the funding sources and the amount of funding. We're waiting for the opinions back from George K. Baum and Greenplay and those type of people to tell us what it's going to cost to run a facility. You know, we're not talking about strictly facilities in Fort Morgan. We're talking about assisting Wiggins with some facilities there, assisting Brush with facilities there. So we're trying to spread this across the county. We don't want this, you know, centric in Fort Morgan. That's always kind of been an issue is, you know, where does the big facility go? But like it or not, Fort Morgan is the geographic center of the county, and it makes sense that this is where we would put the larger facility. But we would like to work with you, you know, and I don't know what your timeline is. You'd have to tell us, I guess, what that timeline is. But we would like to work with you either architecturally or somehow that if we get this passed, you know, we can be ready to go and get something going in conjunction with the field house.
So y'all don't have a central location picked yet for the main building?
Not formally, no.
Okay.
Once we get our needs assessment back, our citizen surveys back, and we consolidate all that information, we'll have some more concrete plans probably in the next 45 to 60 days on that type of thing.
So you're looking at utilizing the funds we would expend on the field house and combine it with what you would utilize to build the overall field house for Fort Morgan, for City of Fort Morgan's?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and our vision would include, you know, a traditional recreation facility layout. I mean, some aquatics type of stuff, walking track, weights, courts, all the type of stuff that you would find in a traditional recreational facility. It would be a little bit broader than the field house, but certainly right along the same needs.
Here, excuse me. When we looked at the survey results, that the city funded a survey back in 2003, and like the number one priority, well, they listed aquatics as a priority then, and now that we're going across the county, aquatics is a big priority still. So the short-sighted nature of just going after a field house now and then tucking on maybe aquatics later is we know that aquatics will draw people to Fort Morgan, and we know that it's wanted in this as a way that we can still have all of the amenities that are within a field house, but it's just going to be, a better facility for everyone. So, and Clint, your comment about wanting to know a central location. So, if we're able to partner, if we can partner with Morgan Strong on this bigger facility, it can definitely, the intent is to have the biggest facility in Fort Morgan.
Right.
And then supporting structures on the bookends of the county.
Right. I was just saying, if we're going to be bookmarking the money we had set aside for a field house, I would hope that we would get at least a field house or the main rec center in Fort Morgan, is all I was.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
It makes the most sense because of, what Rob meant about the hub and the biggest center for population.
And its use would be countywide, not
Right.
just Fort Morgan. I mean, we want programs, we want leagues, we want everybody across the county coming to facilities, not only in Fort Morgan, but in Brush and Wiggins as well.
Right.
But, I mean, we want to attract, people coming into Fort Morgan to use the aquatic center, to play ball, to do whatever they're going to do. We're going to stop here, eat, all that kind of stuff. We can get out-of-town teams to come in. We can do all that type of thing in that type of facility. We can send Fort Morgan teams to Brush to play. They can, eat at Brush restaurants, spend some money in Brush. All that type of stuff has an economic impact, not to mention, the attraction for businesses coming in, relocating or coming into Fort Morgan.
I think it's a huge need. I mean, I have a family of 4 kids, and we go to Greeley to go to the Family Funplex to go there, or we go to Brighton, or we go to wherever. That's nothing local that we can't go to, and that's very unfortunate. So I think it's very much a need in Northeast Colorado.
If we were to, I guess, looking at if we were to partner with Morgan Strong with a field house rec center, whatever we want to call that, ultimately, who would, and maybe you guys are not this far down it, who would own that facility? Because at some point, we would go from being municipal recreation organizations to a recreation district. And so I guess a question I would have, I don't know if that would be an issue, but if we were to use grant dollars, that would be coming to the city of Fort Morgan for a facility that we would then, in theory, giveaways not, that's probably a stronger word than it needs to be, but transferring ownership.
Right.
One of the issues that we'll run into with the grant is the same issue we ran into a few weeks ago. The grant is scoped for a specific purpose, and if we're going to rescope the grant and do something different, we stand the chance of creating some issues with DOLA, as well as going outside the scope of that. That's not to say that we can't partner with and do something with Morgan Strong. We just need direction from council on what you want to have happen with the design of a field house and where we can go. The other thing is we couldn't use that grant money to partner with another organization to augment what's being done because that grant has been provided under a contract for a specific purpose. So there could be some issues with that.
So this is all planning because it's based upon the November election, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
But for sure, what I got out of your presentation is that in support of what Morgan Strong is trying to do and what they're moving towards in November is getting the municipalities on board to publicly support and publicly
their concept.
recognize that, we are, as an entity, we are behind.
And the details of that, that Jeff is addressing, we'll have to to get through that. I mean, what we don't want to do is duplicate services. We don't want you building a field house and us building a field house. I mean, that's just not a good use of money.
Right.
So we need to work together somehow to make sure that the facility that we build, or the facility that you build and we build, or however it works out, is what the public wants, is available to the public, and it's just, you know, we don't want divergent groups
Right,
doing the same thing.
right, which makes complete
I mean,
sense.
it's all ultimately taxpayer dollars, whether it's a grant money, it's all citizen money that's funding this stuff, so we need to make sure that it's used efficiently.
But if Fort Morgan took the money, how much did we budget or figure a field house would be? 5?
To build it, we don't have the numbers back, but I think we were thinking somewhere between 4 and 5, yeah.
Yeah, so if we just took the money that we're doing for a field house and gave it to Morgan Strong, then wouldn't that just essentially make Fort Morgan one of the biggest contributors?
It would.
I mean, and isn't the whole thing with it, I mean, I understand you're going for contributions, but your spiel was that the money or the cost was going to be disseminated over the whole county and everything. So I see a little inequity in that.
Well, and you know, the structure of a special district is like a municipality. I mean, you've got an elected board. There'd have to be a board election. You elect people from across the county, you know, districts and that type of stuff. Municipalities that have skin in the game are going to have a seat at that table. I mean, that's not going to be, you know, we don't expect Fort Morgan or Brush or Wiggins or anybody else to donate time, money, personnel, or whatever, and not have a voice on that board. So that, you know, there's going to be a place for that, you know, in the governments of that district. Yeah.
And just to be clear, we haven't dedicated any money towards the field house at this point, and we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. So don't write it in the paper that the city's got $5 million to help build a recreation center.
But we have the money
And it's trying to
in
keep
reserve,
Jeannie from
correct?
having a heart attack back there, so.
We would have the money in reserves that we could pull from to do this with
Yeah.
ease. It wouldn't be an
Well,
increase.
They always have money.
Depends on when it's built and how much we spend between now and then, but today, we would have $4 million in reserves that we would have to transfer from the general fund to the capital fund for that purpose, yeah.
So it wouldn't be any additional cost from the city.
As far as,
Like, we have the money available.
yeah, we do have the money available, yeah.
He's like, give it to me.
Did you get that, Kara? Okay.
And I think that's an important point to make. I was going to make it later in the meeting, but I think it's important to make now and maybe later again, is that the reserves that we have are in the general fund, not necessarily in the capital fund. And they're two different funds. When we build capital projects, they're built out of the capital fund. Money from the capital fund cannot be, by law, transferred into the general fund, but money from the general fund can be transferred into the capital fund. And so this money that we're talking about is actually general fund money that that would be transferred into the capital fund. And the reason why the capital fund doesn't have a lot of reserves is because we've been building a lot of things lately, which is awesome.
Hey, any more questions? If I could, I'd just like to thank all, you know, you see a lot of recreation supporters out here, so, you know, recreation is really not a luxury. I mean, it's kind of a necessity, and people are involved in it. I came up here at 6 o'clock from the baseball fields watching my grandkids play ball, so, you know, it's all the time. People want to do it. People want to be involved. I mean, we have a huge gap moving up from the middle school age older. We have a huge gap in recreational programming for those type of kids. I mean, we do a pretty good job for the younger kids, but once they hit the middle school age, municipal programming tends to drop off. Opportunity for them tends to drop off if they're not in organized sports in the schools. They really don't have that opportunity to participate, and we're wanting to bring everybody in.
Well, I'd like to compliment the committee, the job you guys have done of being so comprehensive and bringing everybody in and trying to look at all the different groups and everything. I think that maybe you're helping to circumvent things that became roadblocks in the past with being able to get it to pass on through, because as you said, it seems to be a fairly universal desire and everything, and if you can get everybody pulling in the right direction, and I think it appears to me from what I've seen that you guys are doing a good job of trying to get that going, so
Thank you.
I'm pleased with the job you've done, and you deserve commendation.
Well, good, thanks.
And it would be great, as you guys are progressing forward, to have somebody, reach out to the mayor, reach out to the city manager, the clerk, and get on our agenda, because it would, as a potential very large participant, in this project, it would be great to get more, I don't want to say timely, but more frequent updates on how things are going, and if there's roadblocks that the city can help you guys,
Absolutely.
through. I mean,
Thank you.
And thanks, Rob, for all your help in promoting the community. I know you sat on our board, or our citizen group for the Strictly for Streets, which has been a huge success to improve the quality of life. And I don't know what your win-to-loss ratio is with these things, but, given your success in most recent ones, I think you've got a lot of good organization
Well,
moving forward.
I'm a fourth generation Fort Morganite. I don't know if that's a word, Fort Morganite, resident of Fort Morgan. Anyway, fourth generation, and, we've been here a long time, and Fort Morgan has always been a progressive community. It's always been a place to live that I'm proud of and want to support, and that's why we do this. So, thank you.
So what you're looking at, just to clarify, you would like to have a formal resolution in support of the Morgan Strong movement with authorization in that to provide staff direction to work with Morgan Strong representatives and consultants to try and preserve, or I guess best spend the public money and not duplicate efforts.
Yes.
Okay. So we can do a formal resolution at the next meeting and have it drafted up, and then council can consider that if that's something you want to do. Okay.
For the 7th?
May 7th. Yep. So we'll get that on the agenda if council's good with that.
They don't need, do y'all need something tonight, or do y'all?
No, we don't need any night, that's fine.
Not on the agenda.
you need something, just tell them that, go to the YouTube video for the council meeting and watch it.
And like it.
We'd be glad to come back.
Yeah,
And like it.
like,
There you go.
like,
And
like.
it. All right. We have a Facebook page too. So thank you. All right. Anything else? Thank you for your time very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Signature group picture.
I think we just got rid of our audience.
Go outside for a picture.
More than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
It's getting better from here.
I think it was something you said, Mayor.
Can you go get a picture outside of them? Thank you.
Can we get this moving? Oh.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
They must have known you were going to speak, Mr. Nation.
Yeah, that's okay. I can talk over him if you want me to.
We'll give him a minute.
To go out and get a picture of them. Can we delay long enough to let her go do that?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Kara.
She has my desk number. I talked to her this afternoon.
Okay, next item on the agenda is presentation on bids for a chipper for the electric department.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to council, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you.
Didn't have the pleasure. I was at a conference last week, or the meeting before, I think, so. Tonight, I've got a couple of bids that we'll go through. Departments are purchasing some of their equipment for the year. And so the first thing we have tonight is a new chipper for the electric department. We went out to bid and had two different companies that kicked bids back to us. The one that Doug and the department really likes is the one from the Global Machinery. The biggest reason is it's a bigger horsepower chipper. These guys, when they go into their tree trimming services during the winter time, they go through a lot of tree limbs and everything, and they just chip them on the spot as they trim them down from the electric lines. And the old chipper that we borrow from the Parks Department is getting some age on it. It's always being maintained and everything. So we'd like to go ahead and get a little bit heavier duty machine, and the one from Global Machinery was the one that fit that bill. So it was a little bit more than the low bid here. So we're asking to go between the high bid and the low bid in this one. The other feature that this machine has is that when you feed limbs into a chipper, I've now learned this because I've never done this, but the old style chippers, when you feed them in, the drums will cause the tree limbs to whip back and forth, and I guess it's really beats up the guys running the limbs in. And this newer style, the drums are turned sideways to hopefully keep it from whipping into the employees, and the low bid didn't have that feature in it yet, so that's the other reason that we were hoping to go with the Global Machinery bid. So
That's a safety and risk thing, right?
yeah, exactly. So anyhow, we're looking for approval to accept the bid from Global Machinery in amount not to exceed $79,995 for a new chipper. Happy to answer any questions.
I was going to say wear and tear on the Parks Department's chipper.
Yeah, it'll reduce, and it's one of those that if their chipper goes down, they're more than welcome to come borrow ours, and vice versa if we need, 2 chippers for what we're doing. We'll chip
Storms
in.
would be a
We'll
good
chip
use.
in and let them borrow our
Give chip in, and there you go.
Chip in on the chipper.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
Seeing none, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I have a resolution to accept the bid for the hand-fed chipper from Global Machinery for $79,995.
Second.
I have a resolution by Allison Howe, a second by Doug Sashow. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Next is presentation on bids for a pickup truck for the electric department. Mr. Nation.
Once again, and let's be clear, this is more than just your standard, F-150 type pickup truck. This is one of our more heavy-duty pickups. They're replacing a pickup that we've had in the department since 1998. So the last one's got quite a few years going on it. They want to go with the heavier duty one so they can pull some of the equipment that they need out on the job sites that they right now are pulling behind their big digger trucks and stuff like that. There's a lot of times having the heavy duty pickup to do that is more convenient, and so needing to replace that older one, so we still have that ability to do that. We went out to bid. We only received 2 bids on this, probably because of the size of the pickup. One from Johnson Auto Plaza and the other one from Rush Truck Center. We're looking for approval to accept the bid from Rush Truck Center in an amount not to exceed $60,010. I apologize, that's $10 over budget. Forgive me now. For a 2019 Ford F-450 4x4 crew cab service truck with a dump bed.
Sorry, I just saved $5 on the last one.
True.
And this will have a dump bed?
Yeah. So they'll be able to use it for when they're chipping or if they are just moving material. We do move a fair amount of dirt when we're doing poles and stuff like that out to the site. So.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
Seeing none, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution accepting the bid from Rush Truck Center in the amount of $60,010 for a 2019 Ford F-450 4x4 crew cab service truck with a dump bed.
Second.
A resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Kevin Lendl. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you
Thanks,
once
Brent.
again.
He's back again.
Next is presentation on bids for a CNG refueling compressor for the gas department. Mr. Nation.
I almost made Tony stay and present this, but I didn't know how long the last couple discussions were going to go, so I was nice boss and told him I would handle it for him, so.
Aw.
So, for those of you that are aware, I'm not sure if Mr. Fowler is, but we have our own CNG fleet, which is part of the gas department. We have a couple vehicles now in the water department that are CNG. We've had our own compressor station back there since 2000, so we can fuel our vehicles on site. That compressor has started to become quite the pain, needing a lot of maintenance. So Tony decided it was time just to go ahead and get it replaced so we could go ahead and continue to fill. It's kind of a lengthy process. We have a smaller compressor, so it's not a quick fill like some of the gas stations you see along the interstate and everything. And so when it breaks down, it really does trickle back to keeping our vehicles full on CNG. So I felt it was time to go ahead and replace it. So we went out to bid. We had two companies that bid on it, CNG Services of Arizona and Ozinga Energy. This one we're looking to go with the low bid, which is CNG Services of Arizona for their fuel maker. And we're requesting approval for an amount of $30,000, which includes a little over $5,000. When we get the new one in, we may have to make some adjustments to the concrete work and the mounting and all that stuff in the parking lot, if you've seen where our fueling station is. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough approval money there that we could bring, concrete guys in if we needed to, or if we had to buy a different type of mounting stuff for it and everything. So we're looking for approval not to exceed $30,000 for the fuel maker system. Any questions?
Would have been fun to say Ozinga.
Yeah, Ozinga is, that's one of our most unique companies I think I've seen lately, so.
So is this not, if we're gonna get a bigger compressor, is this gonna be strictly for city vehicle use?
Yeah, this
or-
is still just strictly for city vehicle use, so.
Okay.
Would it accommodate more?
Right now, I would probably think that it would accommodate more city vehicles would be that conversation. We do continue to have conversations with some private companies that want to bring a, commercial grade, gas station type system to Fort Morgan, and they're still working on that. I just don't know how close they are, but we continue to support them in those efforts. But this is more just for our fleet and our potential growth in our fleet.
I know Parks and Wildlife has biofuel, but they gotta drive to Sterling or elsewhere to fill, so.
Yeah, and I did find out that they're being allowed to buy non-biofuel vehicles now, so as they're rotating them out, they're losing those in their fleet out here, so.
Okay. Any other questions? I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I have a resolution to accept the bid from CNG Services of Arizona for the Fuelmaker FMQ 8-36 and the accompanying items for installation not to exceed $30,000.
Second.
I have a resolution by Allison Howe, a second by Doug Sashow. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you once again.
Thanks, Brent. Next on the agenda is the 2020 budget calendar. Mr. Wells.
All right, so it is that time. What I have for you in your packet today to quickly go over is a follow-up to our retreat and some of the things that council has asked be considered as a priority in the 2020 budget. We broke this down into 4 different sections. Staff capacity. We went through several different things that you would like us to consider when we're looking at staff capacity. Housing, economic development, community engagement, and then specific projects. And some of those specific projects include the Field House, Trails Master Plan, Phase 1, West Street, traffic signal. One of the things I wanted to point out there, you see eminent domain with a question mark. On those corners, it's pretty tight, and we'd have to acquire some property to put those in. And talking with engineers about that, and we have 2 very capable engineers on staff, which is great. One of the potential fixes for that, instead of putting in a light, is to go ahead and build out Education Way and then Dual Street forward, which gives a loop, which is what we initially asked the school district to do, to build a loop out to Acoma. But we have the dedicated right-of-way. We can go in and build that. And what that does is it alleviates that compaction there at Acoma and West Street, and allows people to get off of Acoma and go down to the school, as well as loop around and get out. So by providing more ways for them to get in and out, it actually will probably alleviate some of the congestion. And when we haven't looked at the price yet, but the price to put up and maintain traffic lights are a long time period. Putting in this road for future development, as well as leaving congestion, may be a better way to go. So I want to thank Brent for his suggestion today. And one of the things that we'll be looking at as part of that proposal is what's an innovative way, or a better, more efficient way to manage some of these goals that council's trying to address. Safe trails, pedestrian routes on Riverview Avenue and Barlow Road, to provide better MCC access and Walmart access with multimodal transportation. Bike lanes with striping, east-west, north and south routes. We'll look into that. Sanitation issues, splash feature. I was going to put in parentheses garden hose, but
Not what we thought.
yeah, I know that's not. A thank you project for nonprofits that assist us in the community. Smart cities utilizing our broadband, and we've already had meetings with ALLO on how we can do this. And we are going to continue to have meetings with them to figure out how we can promote smart city. And I know Brent's got a few things to discuss, or I guess to bring up with the recent convention that he went to, or I guess a learning session he went to with our economic development specialist this last week. And then one of the things, looking at closing downtown streets for events, some plaza concepts, and I know we've already started working on that with various downtown groups. Sarah's doing a great job with that. One of the things I want to point out that I think is really important also for council to consider as we move forward is what's not listed on here, and that is we have multiple ongoing projects that are considerably larger than what we've had in the past. We've tripled our street budget in the last several years, which takes a considerable amount of planning, not just for the streets, but what's under the streets. I know that the utilities guys trying to keep up with that. That creates a lot more work and effort. One of the things I know we'll be doing in the personnel and staff capacity is determining, do we have enough people to do the work that needs to be provided to the citizens and what's expected by council. I know that this list makes all of us very nervous from the perspective that we want to make sure that we get everything done for council, but we also know that we have a limited capacity. And that's why looking at staff capacity in 2020 and moving into 2020 is going to be really important. As I know, we took our public works director from another community a few years ago, and when we brought him over here, we gave him half just to give a perspective, we gave him half the number of departments that he had when he was in his other community, and he is busier here than he was there. To put that into context of how busy we are and all the things that we're getting done in the community. That says a lot about our staff and what's getting done. It says a lot about our city council foresight and the support and direction that we get, and we want to make sure that we're able to maintain that drive that we've been able to for the last several years, well, last almost decade now, and moving forward. So that first piece, staff capacity, is going to be really important. What we'll do with this list, and I want to bring up a couple of other things while we go through this, but what we'll do with this list is if council approves this list tonight, obviously things change in the budget process. We can add, we can take away, we can do whatever. When we go through and look at capital projects and other things, we will be including some of this in there. Well, we'll be including all of it in there on where can we fit this in and determining whether we have money and capacity to get it done. And we'll bring that back in the budget so that you can see that we've considered it and determined whether or not that's the direction you want to go. When you look at the housing, one of the things that we're looking at is self-help housing and how do we promote that. I've been working with Northeast Colorado Housing, Sharon over there. I'm trying to think of Helms. Yes, Sharon Helms. Thanks. And in discussing this with her, she's got 7 to 8 applications for 7 to 8 new homes. You've probably seen some of the homes that they've already built around the community. They're nice. They're well done, and they allow people with less means to get into a home and own a home because their sweat equity works. They go in and actually work on the house. The sweat equity works to help with the down payment, and it's a very good program for a lot of people in our community to transition out of apartments and rentals into home ownership. The problem that we have is we don't have open lots that will work for what she's trying to do. I know she's looked at a lot of different things. Right now, the best thing for her is the Graff property, which is off of Gateway. The only problem, it doesn't have streets. So some of the things that we're going to be working on, just as an example, to help her is figure out, do we do the engineering for the streets in there so we know what we need to build? And one of the things we've talked with her about, we're looking into it, is can you put a lien on each one of those lots when they're sold or when it's finished out, and the city get a portion of the money back if we build the streets so that they can build the houses. We're looking, preliminary numbers are pretty high on that. We're trying to figure out, get a better number. That probably won't come until after we get the engineering done, but we'll probably come to council and ask for some of that money that's been set aside for housing to determine what it would take to engineer the roads in that area so we have them ready to go, and then we can make decisions, and it'd also be helpful to develop that out. We're looking at the downtown mixed use. We already have an individual that's looking at, is already building some residences downtown, looking at that. We already have some finished units just across the street, and we'll be focused on the downtown, not just in residential, but how do we combine the residential with economic development. We have several fun plans that Sarah's come up with, and we've moved with various groups within the community to make that happen. That downtown plaza idea is a really interesting concept that we'll be looking at. Anyways, with that, is there anything on this list that you don't remember, doesn't seem like a priority, or needs to come off? Or
We'll determine that, I guess, when we get into the budget and them dollar amounts.
Oh, that sounds like a really good thing to do. One of the things on there is the field house. Right now, our direction is to move forward with the grant and make that work. If we get a resolution, directing us to work with Morgan Strong, we'll definitely work with Morgan Strong and figure out how we can piece this together. It's going to be kind of a tough puzzle to make happen, but I think everybody agrees we don't want to take taxpayer money and underutilize it. And so we'll see what we can't do within the scope of the grant agreement as well as the scope of the overall project, and what we can do. So
would how is that going to work? Because that seems like that would be, we're not going to know for sure if this Morgan Strong is going to go until after the election in November. So if we go out and do a grant, get the grant, and it passes, it's not a good situation.
No, and this is going to be a tough nut to crack for sure. But if that's the direction we get from council.
Maybe look at holding off on doing the grant until submitting the grant?
Well, and we've already got the grant for the field house, so we're kind of locked into that. That's where we're going to run into the rub, is we need to get these things designed within a specific amount of time, or modify the grant, which I doubt they'll let us modify a field house to a rec center, because that's absolutely not something that DOLA funds. They've made that very clear. And so, we've got to try and work through this and see if it's a possibility or not, and then work with them to see what they're doing. I think, I don't know what the best case scenario is. We'll leave that to the engineers on how we can make this work, but it might be one of those things where we design a building that can be, the design can be modified into something bigger down the road, because we're just doing design now. And we would want to make sure that we're thinking about that in the design process, that if we added a whole bunch of components onto this to support the rec district, let's make this design so that it's modifiable, not just something we, as a standalone. I think that's probably what we'll be looking at doing in the design process.
Is there a rough drawing of the field house anywhere that I could just like to look? I'd love to look at it.
We've got some ideas of what a field house looks like, but we don't have anything on paper yet. We've seen, if you want to see some ideas of field houses, I know Parker's got recently built a field house, and you can see theirs on, I think, on their website. And I'm trying to think who else recently did a field house. Anyways, there are some examples that we've kind of looked at.
Yeah, I hear the field house versus recreational facility. I mean, I'm trying to get my hands around what the difference is.
And the difference is that it's a smaller facility. It doesn't have any aquatics. It's very specific to what its uses are. It's kind of a multi-use building where you can convert basketball courts into volleyball courts, into pickleball courts, and provides, some offices for our staff, as well as a weight room and maybe some restrooms.
Okay.
So it's a better version of what we use at the Armory, yeah.
Yeah, it's a larger armory.
Yeah. On one floor.
Bats.
Just a little larger.
Yeah.
Less bats.
Less bats, less bees.
And they're all on the same level.
I think less bats is always better.
Yes. Yes.
Good fertilizer.
Bees are up to speed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Less bats.
So we'll move forward with these as presented tonight, and then bring them back to council on costs and other things throughout the process.
Okay.
So thank you for your direction. We appreciate it.
Okay.
No, it looks beautiful, Jeff. Thanks for capturing our ideas so well.
And John helped me a lot with that too. So.
Way to go, John. Thank you.
Okay, next is consent agenda. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight's consent agenda includes item A, approval of the disbursements and payroll for March, and item B, approval of the minutes of the April 2nd, 2019 City Council regular meeting. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine business by the council and will be enacted with a single motion and a single vote by roll call. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is deemed necessary, that item should be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately.
I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution approving the consent agenda as written.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Clint Anderson. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Public comment and audience participation. Susan? Berta? Kathy? I take that as no. Okay. Reports by officials and staff.
Thank you. I wanted to bring up again, just really quick, the reserves. The reserves obviously are healthy right now, and we continue to spend a little bit here and there to make up differences, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with how those reserves work. If there are any questions in the budget process, we hope to receive those from council. We'll hopefully be able to explain the different reserve amounts and what they're used for. But again, the reserve that we have in the general fund is the result of great budgeting and great income years for the city. You know, we've worked with less employees for the last several years than we have traditionally. They've worked harder, done more projects, and as a result, we haven't spent our budgeted amount. They always budget for what they need, and if they don't need it, they don't spend it. We don't have a use it or lose it philosophy at the city, and I think that is really what contributes to those reserves. But the reserves in the general fund can be transferred to the capital fund. It can't go the other way. So when we talk about some of the different items that we're buying with reserves, kind of keep that in mind. So that being said, I know we've got a couple of directors that have some great announcements. We'll start with our Chief of Police. Russell, no, we're civil.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. We have two items to report from the Police Department. We ran the quarterly crime report, and crime is down for the first quarter of the year as compared to last year by 41%, 44% as compared to 2017. So we think we're making some impact, and we're happy to report that. The other item is we do an annual fundraiser for the Drug and Safety Council, and we have through them, we solicit donations through the business community. And this year, we have almost 50 donations, totaling almost $5,000.
Wow.
That's the largest one we've ever had in the history of doing this. And those monies are funneled back into a system where we can purchase safety materials for children. And This year, with that type of donation, we'll be able to provide materials for every school-age child in Fort Morgan. And I publicly want to thank the business community for doing that. It's a very generous community here, and they've stepped up to the plate, and we're going to take full advantage of it. Thank you.
Ooh, he's got plaques. We like plaques.
Yes. So first of all, I want to thank you guys. You allow us to set our budgets in such a way that it allows for, especially like me, the ability to travel on occasion. The last month or so, it seems like I've been on the road, and my wife will, let you know how much I've been on the road. But I have had the pleasure of representing the city at a couple different things, and a lot of this is thanks to the guys that work for me. I mean, we've got some great crews that work in our departments and everything, and so we've had the opportunity to accept some awards the last couple of weeks. The first one that I'll show you, we won this one 2 years ago or last year. I don't remember, everything's running together. We won another Safety Award of Excellence with APPA, and so I think I mentioned that last time at council. So myself and Mr. Linton went down and received this award, and got to meet a lot of our other peers and the organization. And the event that the APPA put on was also the weekend that they do their lineman's rodeo, and which they go out there and do their skills on climbing poles and doing all that work. And this was down at the Garden of the Gods where they did that. And yes, it snowed while they were doing that. So we heard it was quite chilly for this year's lineman's rodeo. So, but Doug has committed to trying to get a crew to enter that next year. And so we're hoping to get some of our younger guys involved in that and see how they do. So. One of the other things I went to, and this one I know we've had a press release about, and I brought this one in. Myself and Jeff were in Nebraska, and we received NMPP's Project of the Year, and this was for our fiber project. The reason I brought it in was we had the plaque, but also received an email today. As part of the award that you get from NMPP is you get a cash donation that they asked to make towards some project in your community. When we won their Project of the Year a couple years ago, and we had that money donated to the college because they were starting some programs towards electrical work and everything, and so it was some nice startup money for MCC and that. So this year, when we got notice about this, I sat down with Jeff and we talked about it, and we requested that NMPP staff find somebody within the NMPP footprint that was hit hard by the flooding. And so they have gone out. They will be visiting the community of Spencer, Nebraska, and making a donation on behalf of the city of Fort Morgan. So I was happy to hear that they'd found somebody. This community, with as long ago as the bomb cyclone and all the flooding events, they still do not have a running water system in their town. That's how bad off they are. So anyway, we're appreciative of the fact that NMPP staff is going to go up there and deliver money on the city's behalf. And so not a lot of money, but at least it's something that they can put towards the restoration project. So the other thing, I did have the pleasure last week going down to Texas and attending a fiber optics conference. I took Sarah down there and started introducing her to all of the fiber people that I've experienced the last couple of years, and it was fun to be able to tell people that we got our project up and deployed in under 2 years, because they're still making presentations at the conference about communities that are 11 years into their build and still trying to get everybody, passed or at least have service go to them. We did spend a fair amount of time listening to presentations on the Internet of Things and where we're going with that, and the fact that there's brand new communities, in Texas and different places across the nation that you can move into a subdivision and every single house in the subdivision is Internet ready the minute that you close on the property. They have apartment buildings that the minute you sign sign your lease agreement, they will activate your wireless in your apartment. So the minute you walk in, your phone recognizes you when you walk through the door, and you're on the system already. You know, and that's where all these things are going. And so we learned a lot about that, and so we're hoping to bring some of those ideas that we picked up while we were there and start seeing if we can move those forward, working with Allo, our partner in our system, and see where we can take it. So it was an exciting time down there to see all that. And then I was lucky I missed the last snowstorm, so.
You're lucky.
So,
The last snowstorm was, you know, there was no electrical issues.
yeah, so that's all I had tonight. So thank you very much.
And don't go.
Oh, geez, she's.
Hold up the flag, Brett. Usually my boss is asking for more pictures.
Photo op.
And on behalf, Brent, on behalf of you and Jeff, I think that was a very classy thing for us to do with the community in Nebraska. I think it's,
Oh, I'll go.
he looks awkward.
I was all like, I'm gonna drop one of these.
Well, I have to give Brent most of the credit for that. He's the one that came up with the idea to give the money away. I thought it was awesome.
Look at the camera.
Thank you.
This is the most clapping we've done in a long time.
It's been a happy
Clappy.
council meeting.
It's been a clappy.
It's been a great meeting tonight, yes.
Anybody else?
The only, one last thing I'd bring up to council is we're working really hard. You know, there's a lot of talk at the state level and other levels in government about renewable energy. And I think a lot of our own citizens don't understand what we do at the city of Fort Morgan to promote renewable energy. And so I know in the next few months we'll be working to provide that information. You know, one of the things I can throw out tonight is, you know, we have a 47% renewable mix within the electricity that we receive. And that has a lot to do with our contracts that we have with WAPA and our hydropower. But we also have wind and gas, what is it? Nuclear is part of it. And then we also have landfill gas as an attribution as well. So, you know, we are definitely looking at that, have been looking at that. We just don't often toot our horns about it and make a big deal about it. We're just doing what we know is the right thing, and we know it's right based upon what is good for the environment, but also what's good for our ratepayers. And if you look at our rates, they're still some of the lowest that you're going to find, and I think that has a lot to do with the direction we receive from council and their support, and from what our guys are doing, boots on the ground. So anyways, just wanted to point that out. We'll be bringing that back to council.
Good. Bids, meetings, and announcements. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. The city is accepting sealed bids to reconstruct the aircraft parking apron until 3 p.m. on April 22nd. For pole-mounted transformers until 2:45 p.m. on April 23rd. For a tandem axle refuse truck until 2:45 p.m. on April 4th. Or a Packmore HLR 29 refuse unit until 2:30 p.m. on April 24th. For MCO 3-yard trash containers and 95-gallon rollouts until 3 p.m. on April 24th. An unmarked patrol vehicle for the police department until 3 p.m. on April 30th. And 2019 sanitary sewer manhole rehabilitation services until 3 p.m. on April 30th. There were a few news releases included in your table files that I won't go into the details of right now. Under meetings, the Heritage Foundation will meet on April 25th at 4 p.m. in the museum community room. And the next city council regular meeting will be 3 weeks from tonight on May 7th. But I think that's okay, because I think Kara got at least a couple weeks worth of stories and photos tonight.
We're glad you came.
Okay. Next on the agenda is an executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and/or instructing negotiators. under CRS Section 24-6-4024E, and the following additional details are provided for identification purposes. Economic incentives. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Lisa Northrup and Kevin Lindell. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. We will retire to executive session.
Clint,